Want to know a sure recipe for diet failure? Tell yourself that you can't eat sugar and salt, and then try to stick to it. I don't have a crystal ball, but I am here to tell you, you are going to cheat on your diet. And then you're going to kick yourself in the butt and be consumed by guilt. But guess what? You're not a wrong person. It's not your fault. And it's not really about sugar and salt. You just need to know something most people don't. Watch our class discussion. Wow moments are guaranteed.
We all know that salt and sugar are not good for you.
Right.
Most diets and health programs tell you to exclude them. But we've heard that you have a very different outlook on salt and sugar, and in your weight loss approach, you do not ask the participant to exclude or even limit salt and sugar. Can you explain this? I'm very curious.
The difference that I focus on, let's so to say, is what kind of salt and sugar that you eat. Because if you think about it logically, human race have been eating salt and sugar for centuries, thousands of years, literally, and nobody had any problem. So if they were really counter efficient to our health and survival, just by eating salt and sugar, human race would have been extinct a long time ago. So just by the virtue of the fact that we're here, it kind of tells you that it cannot be as evil as we feel it is. Oh, don't eat any salt and sugar. Another thing is, if you look at physiology, and that's more on the side of natural medicine, but that's where you may want to summon your own experience. Things that we like, that we are drawn to, we tend to, they're beneficial. We tend to be drawn to things that are good for us. Because again, how do you motivate human race to survive? If it feels good, they're gonna be doing it. If it doesn't feel good, you're gonna stay away from it. You touch a hot stove, it hurts, you're not gonna touch it. It's your physical signal to tell you don't do it. On the other hand, sex, how many of us would be, engaging in having kids if it was all just, the pain of, dealing with the kids and the responsibility? The reason we perpetuate that is part of that it feels good. So this encourages human race to go on and multiply regardless of what the circumstances may be. So to say that all of a sudden that's a, mistake, malfunction, whatever, and salt and sugar attract us and taste good, but they're somehow evil, there is a disconnect there. Because again, if that was the case, and we were drawn to them before we had all those theories, then we would probably overeaten it a long time ago, somewhere in the 1st century BC, and would have become extinct. So what is going on here? And if you look at the big picture, you can see that the problems with salt and sugar only starting in about last 50 to 100 years. Prior to that, there was no issues with that. There is no records. There is no, in history is that, so-and-so had, too much sugar and therefore they had disease, any kind of, king or queen or, anything like that, There's really no discussion, no record of that. So this tells you this is something that happened very recently. And the answer is actually very simple. Because they used to mine salt from the earth and use natural things to sweeten, their sugar. There was sugar, but it was dried. Yeah, it started with sugar beets. So basically, dry a sugar beet juice and turn it into sugar. And then and went to sugarcane, same thing, squeeze juice out of sugarcane, dry it, that's your sugar. So that changed in the last 50 years because now salt is made in a factory and it's just a chemical. And sugar is also not the same sugar that's been known and used by mankind. So it's just something that looks like and tastes like somewhat what we know but it's a totally different thing. So it's just because we call it by the same name, it kind of tells our mind that, well, this is what it is. But you got to remember, it's just a name. It's a term that has been misapplied. To give you an example, for breakfast, would you eat brownies? No, that's gonna, really, cause you to gain weight. That's very unhealthy. You don't eat brownies or donuts for breakfast. So brownies, donuts consist of sugar, butter, eggs, salt, whatever, think of the main ingredients, assuming they're homemade and minus the chemicals. So sugar, butter, salt for breakfast, not a good idea. Would you eat scones? Oh, scones for breakfast are good. Well, it's sugar, butter, salt. What's the difference? It's the concept that this is one and this is the other. So we kind of formed a concept that sugar is sugar, but it's not. It's kind of like the opposite of the example I'm giving, what's same, what's different. Our brownies and scones, same or different, we think of them as different. Is natural sugar and chemical sugar same or different? We think same, it's different. So that is kind of like, psychological trap that we found ourselves in last 50 years, thinking that they are the same. And I can go on forever about those. In fact, I'm actually going to leave you guys a link to somewhat lengthy video where I explain the difference between natural sugar and artificial sugar, and have you watch that. You are going to be flabbergasted of what actually goes into sugar and salt. There's arsenic in sugar, and sugar explodes, the one that's made at a factory, and there is cyanide in salt. I mean, it is that bad. I'm not exaggerating. So if you want to learn more about that, by all means, go ahead and watch that. It's all factual. It will just open your eyes to what actually is going on with references and supporting links.